In this video, we're going to look at and we're going to review together what I generally think to be the best code that I've written so far in terms of React. This is code that follows all of the best practices. It's super clean, super efficient, has a bunch of design patterns involved, and it makes working with this application not only super fun and actually enjoyable, but it also allows me to ship features at record speed. So this is going to be a very interesting video. Now, before we get into that, there's two things that I want to quickly mention. And the first one is that if you enjoy the way that I teach in my videos and you're also serious about learning React, you should definitely check out my course, Project React, which goes way beyond anything that I teach in any video and actually shows you, as a total beginner, how to build a big and complex project with React and walks you through every step of the way. It's something that is totally unique. You have like a custom application that you work in that I haven't seen anyone else do. And all the students that have been through the course have enjoyed it. And they're so much better React developers because of it. So if you're interested in that, it's called Project React and it's going to be the first link in the description. And the second thing is, if you want a free newsletter that's all about React with tips, tricks, and tutorials delivered to your inbox for free every single week, check out Import React, which, by the way, I love the name. It's my free newsletter. And again, you get React content delivered to your inbox every single week completely for free. It's also going to be linked in the description. All right, so let's begin. So this is the app that we're going to be reviewing today, and this is actually an app that I've been building together with you guys on the live streams over the past couple of weeks, which if you don't know, apparently I'm a live streamer now. So if you catch me on a live stream, come say hi because we have a good time and we actually build cool stuff like this every single week practically. All right, so this is an app. It is a React Native app, but if you're not a React Native developer, don't worry, don't leave the video just yet. This is pretty much mostly React code, and I'm going to show you some patterns that will apply whether or not you're a React Native developer, because there are things that apply generally to React. So I'm just going to quickly show you what this application does. I'm not going to go too deep into it. If you want to actually play around with the application yourself, it isn't currently in testing on the app stores. You'll be able to find a link in the description to actually check it out. But here I'm just going to start in the onboarding process. I'm going to create my character name. So I'm going to do Cosden. Like this. I'm going to here create a character. So this is actually, we have a whole character system involved in this habit game because I'm not sure if it's a game or an app. I'm going to select my hairstyle and just press continue. I'm going to allow notifications, and here we're on the home screen and we can basically create habits, do these habits. And as we do the habits, our character gains experience and becomes stronger, and we can actually unlock different weapons and armor inside of the application. This is what the code looks like for the application. So this is running Expo, which is pretty much the standard for any sort of React Native application. And everything is driven here by this app folder over here, which should be pretty familiar if you use Next.js because it is file-based routing. It's pretty much the same thing. I have all of my routes over here, and basically each route defines some code, imports components, and that's generally how the application works. It's just in a native environment on the phones, but it's no different than if it was running on the web with actually something like Next.js. So here we have a layout component, which again is the same thing as a Next.js component. And this essentially just sets everything up for my main layout in the application, where I have a bunch of imports over here. I'm setting up Sentry over here, which is my error tracking solution so that I can see errors in production as they happen. I'm setting up the query client for React Query. I'm doing something here where I'm invalidating every single query on success because it makes it more efficient than tracking each individual query. Then I have here something for the actual scheme, which is like light and dark mode, which is specific to the actual device that you're on. I'm plugging those into Tailwind, which is my custom utility for Tailwind. This is also a good pattern to do in your applications. I have a separate file just for Tailwind. I export and create this Tailwind utility. I give it here my config file, and then I can use Tailwind to style my React Native application because Tailwind is honestly super cool and I don't want to code without it. Then over here, I'm loading a bunch of fonts, and then when this is ready, or if it's not ready and it throws an error, I just have this. I think this was boilerplate code already set up from Expo when I got the application, so that's fine. Then I'm using that to actually set the background color of the system UI, which is again something specific you have to do for native mobile devices. Then I have a bunch of providers over here, which usually you would see in an application. A bunch of these providers are done by me. Some are third party, like the client query client provider, gesture handler root. This is to be able to track gestures on the application. But I have something like Drizzle, for example, which is my own custom provider. And I do something with a database where I actually get the migrations because the database is locally hosted on the device, and I just migrate the database and then And then here I have a function to seed the database to essentially create your user, create some basic things that I need. And those are the things that you've seen over here, your character and stuff like that. Part of it gets created automatically by this utility function over here, right? Pretty simple. It's extracted in a custom provider and it makes things reusable. And I can just use this and wrap my entire app with it. I have something similar here for the auth provider, which is my authentication provider. I've talked about this in previous videos. This is also in the course Project React. This is pretty standard. I am using Supabase for this, but I'm not currently doing anything with it because we're testing the application. So I turned off authentication, but essentially I have a state here for my session, which is pretty typical. I have a query here that's going to get the user from the database. This does not depend on the session because the user is local to the database. You can be signed in or you can be signed out. In either case, you're going to have a user. It just matters if there's a session attached to it or not. And you can see here in this actual handle session function, if this is getting called here on Supabase. So there's an event listener over here. So Supabase, whenever this changes, it's going to call this handle session function, pass it the session, and then I'm going to update manually my database, set the Supabase ID to the session.user.id or null, right? So if we're signed in, we get a Supabase ID. If we're signed out, we get null to indicate that we're signed out in the application. So this works. This user keeps track of the Supabase sign in or not ID. And then I use this function to basically update my actual user. And then over here, if the user is undefined, I just return a screen of loading to not show anything across the application. Otherwise, I just provide the user and the session across my application. And anywhere that I need to actually use the user, I just use the custom use auth hook to access the context and then access the user or the session and do whatever that I want with it. Pretty simple, pretty efficient, pretty standard. Then over here, I have something interesting that I've done that I really like and that I'm proud of a bit, and that is a custom provider for my character. So the character over here, as you can see, is this character right here, right? This is your actual character that has all the data of what your character is, what its name is, what its health is, and all of these things. I use this in a lot of components, not necessarily directly, but I use it to do other things with it. I sometimes need to do something with the character ID and stuff like that. And everything here, as you can see, is driven by React Query. So I have this use character query. If I just open it up here, it's a simple component that just has a custom hook over here that wraps and returns used focus query, which is another custom hook that I have specific again to React Native. You only need to do this for React Native. Otherwise in React Web, React Query is automatically going to refetch the things for you. But as you can see here, I'm just using use query. I'm passing here the options that I receive from this hook as well. And then I just return everything that use query returns, right? So this is just a thin wrapper on top of React Query, which I'm using inside of this use character query component, custom hook. Now, the problem with this, I mean, this is fine. You should totally do this in your applications, have a custom hook just for a query because you're going to use this in a lot of different places. So it makes sense. But the problem with this is that this character over here, as you can see, it has all of these types over here, but it can also be undefined. Right? And if it is undefined, because on the first render, before React Query actually fetches it, this character is going to be undefined. But if you need to do something like character.id or something, you have to put a question mark over here because you have to account for the first case where it is undefined. Now, because I had to use this character in a bunch of components for a bunch of different things, I didn't want to always have to do character question mark, right? It was annoying. So instead, what I decided to do is I decided to create this custom character provider over here, get at the character query like this, and then over here, return null if we don't have a character. Otherwise, we then provide the character through this character context provider. And now this character is always guaranteed to be not undefined, to be there. Because if it is undefined, this is going to run and this is we're never going to see the rest of the application. That way, instead of doing use character query everywhere, I just have to do use character, which is this custom hook over here. You see it has 31 references. I'm using this everywhere. So if I just go to any reference, for example, edit character, let's go over here to edit character. Let's open up this file. We have const character, use character over here. This character is always going to be defined. So now I can just use it and I never need to deal about having question mark again. Now this is probably a bad example because I'm not really doing anything with the character, but if I were to do anything with the character, I could just do character.id and I could just do this without a question mark. Totally fine. It's something that saves me a lot of time and it's a nice pattern to do for things that you're using a lot in your application. Now, I just want to take a quick intermission to think about what we're really doing inside of this video right here. Because what we're doing here is something that is called learning by doing, right? I'm actually showing you an example of a real code base, and I'm teaching you through doing, how to actually do it yourself. And this is great because this is exactly what Brilliant, the sponsor of today's video, is also doing. Brilliant is a place where you do exactly that. You learn by doing. You have thousands of interactive lessons in various topics such as math, data analytics, AI, and of course, more importantly for us, programming. Brilliant has a platform that is designed to be uniquely effective. Each lesson that you do on there, you solve problems using a hands-on approach that lets you play and get a feel for all the different concepts, which actually has been proven to be a method that is 6 times more effective than watching traditional lecture videos. Plus, all of the content on Brilliant is crafted by an award-winning team of researchers and professionals from places such as MIT, Microsoft, Google, and more. Brilliant helps you build your critical thinking skills through problem solving instead of memorizing. So while you're building real knowledge on specific topics, you're also learning how to become a better thinker. And you can do all of that with literally just a couple of minutes a day. You have fun lessons that you can do whenever you have the time. It's literally the opposite of mindless scrolling, and it actually builds a great habit. And if you want a great suggestion for some courses to take, check out Thinking in Code, which follows exactly what we're doing in this video and teaches you solid foundations for computer science, which is going to directly help you as a React developer. Try everything that Brilliant has to offer for free for a full 30 days. Visit brilliant.org/causeandsolutions or click the link in the description. You're also going to get 20% off an annual premium subscription. Thank you once again to Brilliant for sponsoring this video, and now let's get back to reviewing my code. Now, let me actually show you something else that is really interesting. Let's go here to habit entry cart like this. So this is going to be a big component. There's quite a lot of files over here, but still it's still under 200 lines of code, which is very acceptable, especially considering the amount of functionality that it has. So the habit entry cart component is essentially this component right here. So let's just create a habit. Let's go here and do workout like this, and we're just going to create a habit, leave it empty for now. We're not going to go over all of this. This is the entry card component, right? And important thing here is this checkbox over here. I can actually check things here. This is going to give me some experience and some coins as a rewards. I can then claim this, and I'm also going to get a streak increased, right? I had to do something really cool to be able to have this flow working and to be able to pass any sort of experience, any sort of coins, any sort of items, and also any streak, and have this automatically work where you press continue and everything just kind of works exactly as you expect. So that's this component, the habit entry card. So this component over here, it receives a date as props because we need to know what date we're currently on. As you can see here, I have Thursday, Wednesday, Friday, and so on. I need to know what date we're currently on to know which date to have an entry for, right? So that's why we need that. We also need a habit ID to know which habit to put the entry against. So these are the only two props over here. Then I get the user from the authentication. Again, we've seen this. This is how I access the user. Then over here, I get the data for the habit. So I have this query over here, use habit for date query. I pass it the habit ID. I pass it the date. If I open up here, it's a thin wrapper around use query. I pass it here a query key, right, which is of habit. And then I pass it the ID, which is the habit that we received. And I also pass it here a date. If you see here, I have a constant for all of my query keys. This is also something really cool to do because now I can just export this and use it anywhere, and I never have to worry about typos or putting a query key that hasn't been defined anywhere else in the code. And then we're using this habit. We're also fetching the habit difficulty, which is another table, which is basically defining all of the difficulties of my habit. Again, it's a separate table. There's reasons for that. I'm getting the frequency, all of the entries as well. And then I'm here creating the create habit entry mutation and then the update habit entry mutation. And I have a bunch of other variables over here, figuring out if the data is a past or in the future. And then if we have a completed entry, and then I'm basically creating here some SVG icons based on the different values. And then what I'm doing is on press over here, I have a pressable, which is the equivalent of like a button. It's something that you can press. On press, I'm first checking if there is a habit because we have to check that. Again, React query stuff, everything is undefined. That's why I created the character provider. Then if we have a habit entry, which means that we've already created a habit at some point, we've already pressed this button over here at some point, right? We already pressed it. Then I'm just going to update the habit entry and then toggle is complete true or false. The reason I did it this way is because the creation of a habit actually does a lot of things. It gives you experience, it gives you coins, it sets a lot of things up, it increments your streak and stuff like that. I didn't want to undo all of that every single time you unchecked this property over here, this checkbox, and then redo all of that every single time you check it. And instead what I do is you only create the habit entry once, the first time you press this for any given date on any given habit, and then every other time I just update it and I just toggle it on or off. So what I'm doing here, when I'm putting it off, I'm not deleting the entire habit entry. It's still existing. I'm just setting is complete to false. This is efficient because now this update is super cheap. It's just literally updating one property in the database, and all of the other things like the experience and everything else that you've gotten is still stayed in the database, and I don't need to manage getting that and then removing that all over again. Otherwise, if we don't have a habit entry, then we're going to create a habit entry over here. And this is actually a mutation over here. You can see we have create habit entry mutation. I pass it the habit ID and then the entry date. And this gives me back coins gained, XP gained, item gained, level gained, and new streak. If you actually open up this mutation over here, we go to use create habit entry mutation, and then we have the actual mutation function, create habit entry. You can see here that this is the backend code because again, all of this is running locally on device with a SQLite database. So all of this is technically the API, but it's just functions running inside of the application. That's all technically on the front end, on the client side. And what I'm doing here is I'm doing a bunch of checks to check that your habit can be completed and all of those things. And then I set here some variables for all of these things, coins gained, XP gained, level gained, item gained. And then based off of the actual habit, right, there's a lot of code that goes into it. Again, I'm not going to walk you through because this is quite complex. I'm basically at some point updating all of these variables. For example, if current character attribute level is not equal to next character attribute level, which means if you have leveled up, then I put level gained equals next character attribute level, right? This basically, as the function goes through, it updates those variables. As you can see here, we're also doing this with XP gained. I get the XP for a habit entry, and then I assign it to XP gained. And then at the end of all of this, at the end of this function, right, I'm getting items, item gain, I'm setting it here, new streak, I'm setting it here, right? At the end of all of this, I return all of this to be able to use in the front end from the back end to be able to show the user everything that they've gained from completing this habit. And then if we go back here to the habit entry card, or when our actual mutation is running, I take all of these things and then first I send an analytics event after we've completed the habit. Then if we have gained the level, I actually send another analytics event because I want to track how many people actually leveled up in the application. Otherwise, here I have something that might look unusual. I have a set timeout, but it's totally fine. It's purely for the user experience, where after 300 milliseconds, I will push to a new route. The reason I'm doing here 300 milliseconds is because not doing it felt a little bit too fast for a user experience. And sometimes it's okay to have a delay for the user experience. And that's what I've done here. And after 300 milliseconds, I push to the habit entry success screen over here, and I pass all of these as parameters to be able to be used in that screen. So now if I open up the habit entry success, so we're going to come here, habit entry success. That's not the one. Habit entry success. Where is it? Habit entry success. There we go. We are getting all of the parameters over here, coins gained and all of those from the use local search params. This comes directly from Explorator. You'd probably do something similar inside of an Next.js application. And then I just pass them here to our component, habit entry success. I pass all of these properties over here. And then I have a button to claim them, which basically just goes here to the streak increase. And also, fun fact, I'm going here to the streak increase page when I press claim. So once you see the items here on that screen, which we have seen, then if we have a new streak, because we might not always have a new streak, I will again send you to another screen. I will first dismiss the current screen, then I will send you to another screen after 300 milliseconds, and I will pass the new streak to that screen. So that's how I was able to get data from one screen to another by just passing it from one component to another, right? So again, the habit entry card passes the new streak over here to the habit entry success. This one receives the new streak over here. And then if we have it, also schedules another route or push and then passes the data to the next route. This is perfectly fine. And this is a valid design pattern, if you will, or pattern to use in React applications if you need to share data across multiple routes. And then this habit entry success component, all that it does is it just receives all of these properties and then just renders some actual UI based on the actual properties, and here uses some other components, right? Pretty simple, follows the single responsibility principle. Everything is put in one place. It's highly reusable, and there's a clear pattern, and it's easy to work with in this application. If I need to make a change here, it's easy to know where to make the change. It's easy to actually make the change, and working with this application is actually super efficient. And finally, the last thing that I will show you is this behemoth of a file. It is the item utils file, which is honestly a massive, massive file, but it's really cool because this drives all of the items inside of the application. So over here, it's item.utils. It is inside of the utilities folder. This is essentially my source of truth for all of the items, what they can be, what properties they have, what rarities, prices, and all of that. And I use this across the entire application. So over here, if you look, we have this concept of an item template, right? So what is an item template? Well, first we have to look at item. What is item? So let's see. Let's open up item over here. Item is an actual SQLite table from Drizzle. Drizzle is my ORM, right? This is an actual SQLite table, a database table that represents all of my items. We have ID, internal ID, is equipped, rarity, and so on, right? So that's the concept of an item. I'm exporting the item type over here for whenever I need to use items inside of the application. Item template, on the other hand, essentially takes item and then takes specific properties of item and then has other properties that item doesn't have, and this acts as a source of truth. For example, effects, right here, I have item effect template. Each item can potentially have effects. For example, let's see, item effect type. What is this value going to be? It is going to be heal or streak freeze. An item can either heal you or it can freeze your streak, right? That's the type that I currently have for the items. Then I have value int, which is a number, or it can be null because it is optional, or value %. This is cool because now it allows me to define any sort of effect on an item, for example, heal, and I can put value int 100, heal 100 hit points, right? Or value %, 100, heal 100% of the actual HP, right? I can do the same for streak freezes over here. I can set streak freeze for 1 day. It wouldn't really make sense to make percentage base here, but I can do streak freeze for 1 day, and I can freeze your streaks for 1 day programmatically in the code. This is extensible because now I can have any type of heal item and heal any arbitrary amount of value, of integer or of percentage, right? This is super simple and super extensible. And then I define it here. I have this here, an array of effect templates, right? This is optional, and this is part of my item template. This is not part of the actual item that goes in the database. That's fine because I don't need to store this in the database. It's going to be the same for every single item of the same type. Then I have rarities over here, which is basically all of the rarities of the item. I have required attributes. I'm basically setting all of the properties of an item here as a source of truth, and then I'm using item templates anywhere. For example, I have all of my item templates over here, and this is a massive object from 32 lines of code all the way until, what is it? Until like 910 lines of code. This is a massive object, has every single item in the actual application. And you can see here, I have staff maple, rarities common, required attributes, slot type, and I can use this inside of my application. So here's how I use it. So let's say, for example, I can go here to the items API and I can find, for example, buy item. This is where you actually buy an item. So this function gets called with the internal ID of the item. So that uniquely identifies internally what the item is. And then I get the item template. I pass it the internal ID. So that's going to return to me, for example, this object over here. And then based off of this, I'll first make a check that you have enough inventory spaces, you have enough coins and stuff like that. And then I will also check and create the actual position for the item in your inventory. And then I will actually create the item in the database, and I will put all the values from item template. So I'm putting the rarity, I'm putting the slot, I'm putting the type, and all of those from the item template. I'm only putting in here the things that I need for my actual database to use in the application, and everything else, like the effects and all of that, I'm not putting here. I'm just keeping inside of the item templates and then using that to reference this across the entire application. Right? Again, this is an example of something that is a little bit more complex, a little bit more involved, but I've established patterns over here and everything has a simple responsibility and nothing conflicts with one another. I need to add something else to an item, for example, that applies to all items. I use it in the item template. And then I use that, and if I need to also put it in the database for each individual item of a user, I can also do it super simple. I don't have to, but I can do it, and this code makes that easy, and this code makes it extensible. Right? And this is generally the mindset that you want to have whenever you're building React applications. Everything should have a logical place, a logical responsibility, and should not overlap with other things in your application. If you do that, and if you manage to split everything up super well, you're going to build really cool and really complex applications that are easy to navigate, right? This is a big application. This is a big file, but everything has a specific place. Everything is organized, and I can easily work within this. I just need a little bit of time to get familiar with the code base, but otherwise it is totally fine. Nothing is a mess and everything is clear, and there are clear patterns that emerge from building the project like this. And that's really my entire goal with building videos like this and showing you and teaching you all of these different things, is to show you how to actually build things like this and how to scale this to actually complex applications that, if you look here, have actually a lot of files. There's a lot of different files in here, from my roots, from okay, let's close the assets because those are kind of irrelevant in terms of code, but all of these components over here, right, they're all using subcomponents as well. I have a bunch of mutations applications and queries over here. I have a bunch of utility files over here, right? All of these things should work together. Everything has a place, has a folder, has a file name, and everything works together, nothing overlaps, and it makes for a really, really efficient application. If you enjoyed this video and you want to see more videos just like this one, make sure to leave this video a big thumbs up. You can also click here to subscribe, or you can click here to watch a different video of mine that YouTube seems to think that you're really going to enjoy. And with that being said, my name has been Darius Kozdan. This is Kozdan Solutions. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Ciao, ciao.